Okay, great. So thank you, Carol, and welcome everybody. Um, yes, we have a full session, but I don't want you to be scared. You're gonna receive for sure the slides, right? So don't be afraid if you see the number of slides because there are many. I'm not gonna maybe browse fast through them or read everything that's on the slide. But I wanted you to have the information gathered in one place. So that's why I put a lot of content there, but we're not gonna go into every single detail on the slide. So don't be afraid. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen with sound as well. Okay. So now you should see my screen. I need to make it larger. Where do I slideshow? Okay. Loading, right? That's it. Okay. So this is a title that I know you're familiar with, as it was on your list of um, workshops that you had during this 5 months process, and I wanted to add it here. But as you will see, we will start from the big umbrella and what diversity, equity, and inclusion means, and why it's important for us as a network, how you can embed it in your impact hub and in your life, and in the end, how you can become a DEI ambassador. What I want to start with, though, is to set a bit the scene and the energy. So let's with this. Can you hear it? I shut the
Yeah.
sound.
Yes, yes.
Open. Open a door, and it opens all the others. Open a mind, and see what happens next. No great thing, no beautiful invention was created in a vacuum. It happens when we leave our comfort zone and come together. Embrace faiths, cultures, disabilities, differences. Embrace races, ages, ideologies, personalities, creating a tool or device nobody saw coming. Humanity is plural, not singular. The best way the world works is everybody in, nobody out. So who we're made of is everyone. Differences not just celebrated, but essential. Many more women in charge, equal pay for equal work, everywhere. A new generation of Apple, more diverse than the one that came before. Open is not just who we are, but what we believe as a company. Because humanity isn't singular, it's plural. The truth is, we don't see things the same. The power is, we don't see things the same.
So what I wanted for you to take out of this video is that exactly this idea that we don't see things the same, and there's a power to it. And this is why DEI action matters. And this is why I am very emotional when talking about this topic, actually. And you might hear this in my voice. because it's about each and everybody here in this call, and it's about all of us. So moving further, not starting again. One second. I have technical issues. Okay. So basically, this is our agenda for today. I'm gonna introduce myself because you all know each other, and I don't want to for you all to repeat all the information. So I'm gonna only introduce myself, and then we're gonna go through the big picture of the DEI strategy for the network and what we have done in the DEI task force. Then we're gonna go through understanding what diversity, equity, and inclusion is. How to build the DEI culture in your impact hubs, and this is where we're gonna go through all the layers that most impact hub have. Then towards becoming a DEI ambassador, because as I said, I do believe strongly that this starts with each and every one of us, and if something changes in yourselves right now during these 2 hours that we have together, then you will change something around you, and you'll change something in the persons around you, and they will change something around themselves, and so on. So through this ripple effect, basically, we can become a more inclusive society. Then I have 2 slides, I think, of tools and resources. So we have many more. If you already follow our Impact Hub pages, you will see that we have many resources already shared there. We have more resources in the community app and so on, but I have a selection of tools and resources for you. We're gonna have Q&A session, and then closing remarks and next steps. And this is our short agenda for the next 2 hours. Please feel free to interrupt me anytime you want to ask something, or because I might not see the chat always. So please let me know if you have any questions so far. So moving further then. This is me with the shorter hair, picture from 3 years ago. I'm a program manager within Impact Hub network. I'm a coach, a DEI consultant, and I live in Bucharest, Romania. For 2 years until last year, I led a Liaise Better Incubation program. It was a 2-year European funded program that was meant to understand how we can do better incubation, so how we can make our incubation programs more inclusive. We worked with 5 target groups, and in the resources that you have linked, I linked all the reports that we created in Better Incubation, and many information that we will discuss further do come from the lessons learned there. We had 21 pilot programs all throughout Europe, and worked with 5 vulnerable groups. So we worked with the migrants and refugees, women, youth, seniors, and people with disabilities. It sounds a lot, and it was a lot, but we have some great insights from that program. This year, I was a member of the DEI task force that created the DEI motion, which was presented in the global gathering. I do have a strong belief that the culture of belonging depends on each and every one of us. So this is me, and we are a few participants. This is where I wanted you to introduce yourself, and if we're gonna take 5 minutes for this, can you please very briefly tell me, I don't know, your name and where you're from? So name, location, and 3 words of what DEI is for you. Oh, so I'm gonna pass it on to the first person on my screen, and please pass it on to somebody else so we can move faster about this. So name, location, and what DEI means to you, to keep it short. Sophie is the first person on my screen.
Hi, I'm Sophie, and I'm come to from the Chongqing, China, the Chongqing Impact Hub, and I'm one of the co-founders in Chongqing. But recently I live in Chengdu. It's a nearby city. The DEL means to me it's like the from now to interact much more people, or a different type of the business to come join us, and we will be figure out who will be the suitable, or find much more connections.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sophie. Can you pass it on?
Okay, I will be passed to the Jack or Jack. Yes.
Yeah, Jack. Thanks.
Yeah, you are the first person in my screen. So.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Jack. I am from Belfast, and Belfast Impact Hub candidate. So that's where I currently live, although I'm in London this week for meetings. And yeah, really for us, it's all about inclusion. So we were based out of an inclusive design studio, which really is all about kind of no matter age, ability, background, socio-economic context, and all the rest of it, you have the same opportunity to participate, as kind of Sophie was saying, you know, to be included and to participate in what we're doing. So that's kind of what it means to me. So I will pass on to Vicky.
Thank you. Vicky, you are muted.
Hello. Are you here?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Vicky, and I come from Chongqing, China, and I currently live in Chongqing. Last one. DEI, I think it means like a principle. Principle for us. We will.
No worries.
I think we need to stick to it, stick to the principle, and attract more people.
Thank you.
Hold on, I can't find my screen. Where? Sorry. Sorry, I can't.
Okay, so I will. Okay, so I will pass it on. Thank you, Vicky. Benita, are you here?
Sorry, my screen can't see the next person. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lucia. Thank you. Good morning, everyone again. My name is Benita from Impact Hub Abuja. And the core of our programming is active and equal participation, citizen engagement, and youth inclusion. And for me, I think that's what DIE means. DEI, that's what it means to me. So it means equal representation, active participation, and I think that's what it means to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to pass the torch?
Okay, so on my screen, Jack, I don't know if Jack has spoken.
Yeah.
Okay, you have. Okay. So the next person on my screen is Rui Lian.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. It's Ray, and I am from Impact Hub Shenzhen candidate. And also, what DEI means to me. I used to work in Canada, and every time I apply for a job, and also sometimes they run through the service, they will ask if I am a visible minority, and they will ask if I'm a woman. And I can choose to not answer that question. But that would be something they consider as a diversify and also inclusion. So, and when I come back to China, we have the we co-fund the impact investing firm. So the first field that we were working on is the disabled person and also disabled community, their inclusion. So that's why I think for me it's about diversify and also inclusion for everyone to how we can better provide service to them, and also the equality of everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Carol, do you want to say what DEI is for you?
Sure. I think for me, it's about opportunity, I think. Opportunity to be our true selves and for everybody be their true selves and bring their best value to all the conversations, to all the actions, everything we do. So yes, hope we get as a network, we get this opportunity of being more diverse.
Thank you. Thank you. Talking about the network and the diversity, what you're going to see in the images I used throughout these presentations come from our gatherings. So what you see in the images are other makers gathered in European gatherings, in global gatherings, and so on. So you'll see other makers in the images, and the diversity of the makers, basically. Cool. So moving further, this is, for example, one picture from the Belgrade European gathering. I needed to cut the picture, but you'll see it in full later. So we are many and diverse. So the big picture of DEI in the network, and what is this big picture? Basically, in Ambition 2030, we committed to having inclusion in everything that we do, starting with diversity and inclusion in our teams. In our theory of change, we specified as mandatory to see everything through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And finally, in the roadmap to 2025, we commit to lead and be models with walk the talk in DI subjects. Having all this in mind, this is basically why diversity, equity, and inclusion will be at the basis of everything that we do. And you'll see that we have many programs and a lot of communication around this topic. This is the theory of change. I'm not gonna read through it. This is what I quoted before. So this is our theory of change. This is the strategic framework for 2030. And as said, you'll have the slides. And this is the roadmap to 2025, where you see objective 7 there about inclusion. And why is it that important for us? Because we are spread around the globe, and because we speak a variety of languages. I don't think all languages, but a variety of languages, and we reach a variety of people. I think we are at 110 locations all throughout the globe, and because it would be a pity for us not to take advantage of this large impact that we can make throughout the globe. So it would be a shame to lose this impact and this opportunity to contribute to inclusion overall. Any questions?
Lucian,
far.
I think that would be nice if you could maybe, because they have saw the theory of change, the global theory of change, but maybe not the objectives framework. So if you could just maybe stay a little bit longer on this, this slide and talk about the objective itself, would be nice, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's because it's about walking the talk, so embedding DEI action in everything we do at local level and at network level, and not only promoting, so not only advocating, but empowering and embedding DEI action in all our programs, in all our spaces, and becoming role models for the future. In terms of climate, DEI, well-being, learning, government. So we have several verticals that we have action on, like climate, DEI, and so on. But basically, we want to become role models and to really become partners for this specific verticals.
Thank you, Lucia.
So let's go further in understanding what the diversity, equity, and inclusion mean. And I added here belonging, and you'll see later on why, because we can't have diversity, equity, and inclusion without creating, in fact, this culture of belonging. And we can't have diversity without having inclusion, because if we have diversity but not inclusion, then people leave, so they won't stay. So in order to have a diverse team and a diverse membership and so on, we need to have inclusion and we need to have belonging. But let's see what all these terms mean, basically. So diversity refers to anything that sets us apart one from the other. Equity is about the fair treatment for all, while inclusion implies a cultural and environmental feeling of belonging and sense of uniqueness. So it's about the feeling of belonging to that particular community. And I love this picture here that I put about equality and equity, because we've been talking for many years about equality, and now we're changing equality towards equity, because we need to give people what they need and not the same, because they have different needs, and we need to understand what their needs are and give them what they need so they have equal opportunity. And this is where we get to the opportunity that Carol was mentioning before. These are the types of diversity that we can face. So it's race, age, nationality, ethnicity, culture. I'm not going to read everything. Education, location, socioeconomic status, seniority, department, etc. These are some types of diversity that we can encounter in our activities. And what does it mean for Impact Hub network? So diversity in your local context, because for diversity, it's very important to consider your local context. So in your local context, who is not there but should be? So what diversity means needs to be defined in your local context. inclusion. Does everybody feel welcomed and have a voice heard in the environment? Equity. Does everybody have the same chances of success in our community? Are the opportunities available for everybody? These are important questions that you need to address in your local context to define your strategy about what target groups to approach when talking about diversity, how to include them, and how to offer these equal opportunities to reach equity as well. I hope I'm not going fast. Carol, am I going too fast?
No, it's all good.
Great. Because I want to reach the points where I make you work a bit. Cool. Moving further, besides the size of the network and why it matters for us and why we included it in our objectives and ambitions, I included here some reports that I think are very important for you to get a feeling of what diversity and inclusion can bring. So basically, studies show that diversity and inclusion are key drivers for internal innovation and business growth, that groups of diverse problem solvers can outperform groups of high ability problem solvers, that diverse executive boards enjoy significantly higher earnings, and that multicultural networks promote creativity. You will have in the slide the links to all these reports, so you can read more through it, because we did start from the idea that the power comes from the fact that we do see things differently. And what I think it's very important to stress out here is, and what I heard a lot of times, is that diversity and inclusion requires a large budget for it, and it's expensive sometimes. And I do believe that it's more expensive not to take advantage of the diversity of minds that we can include, and see the opportunity of including and not ticking the boxes. Ray, I think, sorry if I mispronounce your name, I think you were saying about something that's called tokenism, when you tick boxes. Are you a woman? Check. And they check diversity because you check the box that you're a woman, for example. So diversity and inclusion is more important than that, and it can actually bring you also better business, because in the end, impact hubs, we do want to create impact, but we are in the end businesses. So you also need to create profit to be able to thrive and become successful basically in your community and spread your impact. Cool. So moving further. This is where I listed the most common unconscious biases, which we unfortunately all use, but that's why it's unconscious, because we grew up with them, because they're all over, all around us. And what's very important when understanding what diversity, equity, and inclusion is, it's important to notice these biases, because once you notice them, then you can change them. So to take the unconscious bias to the conscious mind and change the way we do things. So basically, the first one is the implicit association. So that means that we associate certain groups with certain traits. The confirmation bias is when we are favoring information that confirms pre-existing beliefs. The affinity bias is when we favor people who are similar to us, for example. The halo and horns effect is when a positive impression of a person in one aspect influences judgments of that individual in other areas. Conversely, of course, is the horns effect, when a negative impression in one area influences our perception of the entire person. Stereotyping, it's generalizing traits. All fill in the dots are fill in the dots. Microaggressions, often unintentional, verbal or non-verbal slights, insults, derogatory messages that convey hostile and negative attitudes towards marginalized groups. Beauty bias, when we judge a book based on its cover, or a person based on their appearance. Ages, of course, when we judge a person based on age, and I think this is one of the most common, like, I don't know, young people are tech savvy while seniors are not, for example. Tokenism, the one that I was mentioning earlier, is when we only check boxes. And unfortunately, this is something I see very often because I work mostly in European funded projects, and the EU wants to diversify and to create inclusion. But in order to create this inclusion, they need to measure what's happening. And in order to measure, basically, you get to the point where you need to check boxes. How many women, how many men, how many persons under 30, under 18, and so on. So this also has this side effect of tokenism. So before moving on to how we can build the DEI and the culture of belonging in your impact hubs, can you tell me if you recognize the unconscious biases, if you recognize any of them at persons around you, or maybe at yourself, if you ever felt them on yourself as a subject, or Benita, you're unmuted.
Yes. So for me, it's ageism, which is a very common factor in Nigeria. I know that a couple of times when I travel and I speak on the project that we do, or the project that I have done, there is this, oh, how old are you again? Oh, you're so young, but you've done so much. Did you do this yourself? Did you? So it's like, it's really, really something that I have come across a lot of times. So yeah. And that's why I'm working with youth to ensure inclusion, social inclusion, political inclusion, and inclusion in every area. So I think, yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Benita. Who else saw those biases or felt?
Yeah, similar to Benita, actually, a little bit of ageism at me, but also, I suppose, myself, I'm guilty of it. If I'm in a in a situation there's an older person there, you assume they're potentially more senior. Or I do, which I know is not always the case, or not often the case. So yeah, guilty as charged of that.
Thank you for sharing that. The good thing is that we don't judge here. It's important to bring these biases into our attention so we can change them. Because once you mention this, maybe next time you will ask yourself, and you will be more open to a younger person being senior in one field, for example. Once we start seeing them in ourselves and around us, then we can change something. So it's not about judgment. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? If not, I'm not gonna torture you. We're gonna move further. Good. Thank you. So, moving further. This is where I wanted you to work in pairs. How many are you? 2, 4, 5 with us, 7. Okay. Basically, what I want us to look at is that the main directions that any impact hub has. So we have the space, we have programs, we have the team, and we have our online presence, because we do all communicate online globally. So these are the main 4 directions where I think it's very important for you to start embedding DEI from building your impact hub already. So it's like building a house. Instead of changing the walls after the house is built, it's better to plan the walls the way you want them. So since you are now an impact hub candidate, I think it's a great opportunity for you to embed already DEI in all your layers already from now on. So I think it's going to be individual work or smaller breakout rooms. Carol, you want to?
Yes, we can make 2 maybe. One with 2 people and another one with 3.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yes.
For how
Cool.
long do you need, Lucia?
Well, I would give them 10 minutes.
Okay.
So we're gonna create 2 breakout rooms. Since we're not gonna have 4 breakout rooms, we're gonna have 2 breakout rooms. Each of the groups is gonna work on 2 dimensions. So the first breakout room is gonna work on the first 2, so spaces and programs, and the second is gonna work on online presence and teams. And the question is, how can we bring DEI in these dimensions, basically? How DEI can be reflected in and embedded in these dimensions in your future impact hub. I think Carol is already helping me with the breakout rooms.
Yes, would be nice. Just maybe send this question, this instruction of what to talk about in the breakout rooms in the chat, maybe.
Yes.
And after that, I named the room. So when you go to the breakout room, you're gonna see which one is your topic. But basically, I assigned Jack and Ray for space and programs, and Benita, Sophie, and Vicky for online presence and teams. So hope you're happy with that. Of course, you can just I think we're gonna have a moment to share later on, right, Lucia? So
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Cool.
yes.
Cool.
We're gonna share.
So if it's everybody happy, Lucia, can I click on
Yes,
open.
any questions before going into the breakout room? So basically, how can we embed DEI in the dimensions that are allocated to your breakout rooms? If you don't have questions, Carol, help me opening the room.
Okay, all good.
Thank you.
Okay, see you in 10 minutes.
See you. Good. So now we are all back from our breakout rooms. I can't wait to hear how was it in the rooms and what were your conclusions. Basically, we're gonna start with the first room and then the second room. So please do share with us what were your conclusions on how we can embed DEI in those dimensions, and the other room can add afterwards. So after the first room presents, the other room can add if you have any other suggestions for those rooms and so on. Good. So who wants to start from first room? Jack, who was the first room?
Yeah, we meet with the Vicky and the Benita. We are in the first room, and I will be share about something, and maybe Benita have a great idea. Will be catch up later. First thing we will be think. The first thing first, we do not let anyone behind. We should focus on everyone, and encourage the people to say something they need and speak out loudly. Especially the young people, what they actually faced on or what the challenges they will be. The next one is will be encourage them to certify. We will be offer the certified agenda to everyone. We'll let them to follow us. And considering some equipment issues during the like the online activity or the online how to say the meeting maybe. So I think the Benita will be will something have to catch up.
Thank you, Sophie. Benita, you still have points to add?
Oh, well, I think Sophie mentioned all of what we discussed, and then concerning the teams, most times it's better when a youth is leading. That way they feel there's this self of ownership and accountability to be able to feel free to voice out. So it's about so to help build a team. I had mentioned that we can make like an app or like a platform or that you can that has youths that they're able to talk about their challenges, their struggles, how they can be better included and then to also build competencies, and then also for to have a mentorship programs, and mentorship programs and then conversations with youths. And I think basically that's just to add to a little bit to what Sophia had mentioned. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, second room, do you have things to add to what our colleagues said?
We can talk about ours, but on that, I think it's quite interesting. I like the mentorship idea, definitely. It's something we talked a little bit about we talked about kind of community gatekeepers, for want of a better word, and how do you actually get the message out, to people, particularly if they're not aware of the hub or they're not as technology savvy, or not as used to technology. How do we use the community to to reach out to people who might not be as aware or able to join the hub, join the activities.
Okay, it's interesting use of words, because you said if they're not able, and this is something that we all need to consider in our activities, that people are not always able to do things the way we do them, and we need to be mindful of that. And I want to share an example here from the program that I was mentioning, Liaise Better Incubation, where we had a person with disability as a speaker, and they could not turn on the camera, and they apologized that they could not do that because they could not hold the phone straight, basically. And we need to be prepared for all kinds of abilities in our activities. Yeah. Parenthesis. So, are you gonna, Jack? Are you gonna continue with your conclusions, with your conversation?
Well, yeah, I can Ray, jump in, but I suppose two big ones for us in terms of space design. Obviously, there's lots of guidance around ability in terms of physical space, but we talked a lot about making it available if there's particularly kind of programs and space, if you like, the two together. If there's a program going on in the physical space, there should be an online version of it, because then that means that people who aren't able or who can't get to the physical space, can they at least participate in an online version? And Ray's got a really interesting example of that. And then the other one that we just talked about is, like I say, promotion of activities using online, but also if people aren't able. In Belfast, we've got a community that they're still not very technology literate, so using local people in communities who can still get out to those people and talk to them and do physical work with them as well. And then finally, on the actual design of spaces themselves, the way that we're doing it in Belfast is we're co-designing the space, the physical space, with our potential users, and being very obviously inclusive in terms of who are those potential users. So rather than have an architect come in and say, right, this is the space, this is what it's going to be like, we're actually having workshops with potential users to say, right, what do you need, what facilities, how does it look, what does it feel like, all that kind of stuff, so that we can, it feels co-designed with our users. Ray, I don't know if you've got anything to add, and also your example of the online offline world was really interesting.
Thank you, Jack. A very good conclusion.
Okay, thank you. I want to stress out the co-design thing, and you're gonna see it in my presentation as well, because it's really important to co-design. This is another lesson that I learned from Better Incubation, is that we should design with vulnerable groups, not for. So include them from the design of the space, the program, include them in your teams, because we can't work with a diverse group if we don't understand them. We don't understand their needs. Also, we will not be able to reach all at all times. What's important is to understand the needs of the group that we are working with. We're not always going to be able to prepare for the deaf, for the blind, for everybody. But we need to assess the needs of the group that we're working with to basically offer the same opportunities to that group. But we can't do it for all. We need to understand who we're working with always, basically. And I want to welcome Carolina, because while we were discussing, Carolina joined. I'm not sure if you are there because we can't see you, but welcome. You are basically right on time, let's say, because we are exactly at the point of how we can embed DEI in our new future, hopefully new impact hubs. Cool. So thank you, Sophie, Vicky, Benita. Do you want to add something on what Jack told us about the spaces and programs?
Okay. Yes. So I was thinking we can also do hackathons. So where you get people. So when we say the people that are less involved, when you do hackathons, you can get your opinion on how they can be better included.
Mm-hmm.
So, because most times you don't even know how they feel, but when there's a conversation, you're speaking to them, you understand exactly how they feel, and then they give you proper suggestions on how we can better include the PWDs, the less privileged, the undeserved people in undeserved cities, in underserved cities rather. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think so I think we can add that as well for programs.
Yeah. Thank you. Cool. So I went back to the presentation now. And I think what's important here is that if we don't intentionally include, we will unintentionally exclude. And this is something that I want you to really think about, because exclusion can be unintentional, like the unconscious biases that we mentioned earlier, which are not something that we do because we want to do that. But we need to be intentional in inclusion. Something there. Okay. Thank you, Carol. Cool. So let's look a bit, because I also have some notes on spaces, first of all. So about creating an inclusive environment. It's about accessibility and universal design. We did, no, Jack mentioned a bit about accessibility, and of course, when talking about space, we do think about the person with disabilities, first of all. And this is where I want to have a parenthesis. It's we talk about disabled persons or persons with disabilities. And there's a fine nuance here, because when you talk about persons with disabilities, you put the person first and then the disability. When we say disabled person, we put disability first. Going back to the conversation about ticking boxes and so on, and how we frame things and how we think about them, basically. Good, so that's about accessibility. Flexible and inclusive layouts. It's about accommodating different activities, but it's also about having a mix of sitting options, adjustable desks, and so on, and also about privacy options. And all these need to be considered when designing the space. Also, cultural representation. When we think about DEI, it's important to incorporate elements that reflect the diverse cultures and identities that you host. So, thinking about the diverse group that you work with, so what diversity means in your local context, and try to embed elements of their culture in your space. This makes them feel accepted, seen, welcomed. Lighting and acoustics, which is often overlooked, but having too bright lights or having a space, only an open space and no separate spaces that can with absorbing materials, I wrote it here, with absorbing materials that minimize noise distractions can be, for example, overwhelming for people with ADD. By the way, I wrote there statistics. Do you know that 3 to 6% of the population, so it's like it means gas and so on, of adult population is affected by ADD. This is why we need to be mindful also about this small, that seems small elements like lighting and acoustics. Other elements, the color palette is also important, and according to your local context and the cultures that you address, for example, you should consider, I don't know, the meaning of the colors, like white in some cultures means mourning, while in other cultures means purity. So you should also consider this when designing your space. Of course, restrooms and changing facilities is also about accessibility, physical accessibility of the space, but also about the gender neutral or all gender restrooms. Of course, to make sure that you have all the necessary facilities there. And this was all about space. Okay, went back. Do you have any questions around the DI in spaces, or any comments or additions? If you're nodding, I can't see you. So I do hope you're there. If you don't have questions, then we're going to go to the next dimensions about DEI in programs and how we can attract and nurture a diverse community within our programs. Sorry. So first of all, we need to do a needs assessment, like we discussed about understanding the local context. Now we need to understand which are the specific needs of the target group that we are working with. As said, you will not be able to always, in all your programs, in all your activities, address all the specific needs, because they are very different. And this is something that I learned in Liaise Better Incubation, that, for example, when you say people with disabilities, and we formed this large group called people with disabilities, these disabilities are so different that it influences a lot your program. So you won't be able to address all. When we're talking about migrants and refugees, these are also a group that is often put together, migrants and refugees, but they are quite different, because migrants choose to live while refugees are forced to live, and it's a different approach. So we do add together these larger groups, but it's important to really assess the needs of the specific group that you were working with. Good. Diverse representation. It's important to have a diverse representation at every level of the program. This is the co-design phase that Jack was also mentioning, and I told you will see it actually written later on. That co-design is something that all the vulnerable groups told us. There are a lot of organizations that want to do things for vulnerable groups, but don't do it with them. So do include them in your teams, in the design of the programs, as trainers, facilitators, mentors, anything, because this is the only way we can understand their unique needs, challenges, but also the unique opportunity that the group offers us. One way to address them is to partner with organizations that work directly with that audience. Moving further, culturally responsive content. Yes. Sophie, we have raised hand.
Yeah, I have a question about the diverse representation. Yeah, my question is that means they should to speak in public, or we should have a host or some employees to listening about what they want to say it out.
I'm not sure if I understood the question. It's important to, sorry, so let's see if I understood correctly. What's important is to include, as said, diversity means different things in different local contexts. I don't know, for example, for Romania, diversity means including Roma people, for example. In other contexts, diversity means having people of color, for example. What it means if to have a diverse representation is to have this type of population within your program, within your team, within your hub, because you can't expect to have members in your hub of a target population. If you, I'm gonna give you some examples. You can't have expect to have an all-white team and invite a black population to your membership, because they will never feel included if all the team is white, for example. That's why I see diversity representation. Yeah, that's what I meant by the diverse representation, and I'm sorry for using white and black like that. But I wanted to make it clear what I meant is to include them in all the aspects of a program.
I see. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for the question. So back to culturally responsive content. About incorporating perspectives, examples, and case studies to ensure inclusivity. This is another thing that we understood from the Better Incubation, is that we need to set different examples. We need to have different role models, diverse role models, in order for them to all feel included and inspired. Accessible materials and resources. This goes to if you have an online program, of course, everybody needs to have access to a laptop or a smartphone or something to access the materials, for example, and an internet connection that is good enough. Or if you're working with blind people, you need to have braille materials and so on. So you need to have accessible materials and resources according to the needs of the target group, which you previously analyzed. And yes, this goes back to being tech savvy or not, which Jack was mentioning before, and what platforms and tools you use that should be accessible to everybody. Inclusive language and communication. About inclusive language, I think we can do a workshop only on inclusive language. There are so many details about how we communicate and how we talk and how we unconsciously exclude people in our conversation. Like one example, small example, is using the word chairman, which already excludes women, and chairperson is more inclusive. So it's the devil is in the details, basically, talking about inclusive language. I do have some slides later. If we won't go through them, you will have them. and they are mostly about language. Incorporate diverse perspectives. This is where you should also have the guest speakers, mentors, facilitators with diverse backgrounds to contribute, because they will provide the participants with different viewpoints. And going back to the first topic of the day, we see things differently, and there is power in the fact that we see things differently. Just think about all the methods like design thinking, for example, which has the ideation phase where you are supposed to create different viewpoints and to create different solutions and so on. So this diverse group can easily create more solutions for your situations, for example. Create a safe and inclusive space. This is very important, because when talking about diversity and inclusion, we are talking about vulnerable groups that very often felt excluded, marginalized, unseen, or even invisible, not heard. So it's really important to create this space where they feel that they can have a voice, they can express, they can talk without this being a risk for them. You need to establish guidelines that promote respectful dialogue. And this is what I was saying, that it's really important for you to already jumpstart this. Since you are a candidate, this is the most important thing that you can already start with the guidelines. Start thinking, how will we work on programs? Which are the rules and the internal guidelines that we want to implement in our Impact Hub? And you should ensure that everyone's voice are heard. Continuous evaluation and improvement. This is something really important, and I will show you later. I linked it in the resources page. We have an impact measurement and management training, the capacity building thread that is available online, and you can learn a bit more about impact measurement. Basically, it's important for you to assess what's the progress towards your goals. So if we want to achieve a diverse membership, we need to define what diverse means for us, and we need to start measuring continuous evaluation and improvement in the programs and in the Impact Hub with all its activities, to always collect feedback and to make adjustments. It's important for you to be an agile organization that keeps making adjustments and improvements to your activities based on the feedback received, in order to understand if you are reaching your goals in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think this is the last one for programs. Yes. Any other questions up till now? Going once, going twice, then moving further. Talking about our online presence, it seems like we have more points, right? Because we do talk a lot online. So accessibility in terms of online presence is about web accessibility guidelines. And this is a framework that is called Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and that helps you understand how to make your website and content perceivable, operable, understandable for all users. This is about small details like color contrast or text size, but also about keyboard navigation, alternative text for images, captions for videos, and so on. So you make your content accessible to all groups. This might be something for your IT person or your communication person, but I do feel like we all should have a small awareness of all these details. And in the resource page, I actually linked you a reader, which is free, where you can test how your website is read for blind persons or for the visually impaired person, because they're not all blind. And there you will see how they read your website and how understandable it is. For me, it was amazing because that's when you see the small details, like, for example, a hashtag. If you don't use capital letters for the first letter of a word, it will basically read the entire hashtag as one word. So it's not going to be understandable. And so on. So this is a very small example, but it's very important. Also, like alternative text for images and understanding if the image is relevant for the content or if it's only to make it prettier. Because if it's not relevant, then you should wonder if it should be there. Because a reader basically reads everything, and having like a very complex image with a very large alternative text that is not relevant for the content, it's not going to make your content understandable. And there are many details like this that can make a change. Inclusive language, again, because it's very important to avoid stereotypes, assumptions, and exclusive terminology. Also, you should be mindful of my screen died. Okay. You should be mindful of gender neutral pronouns. Coming back, I think. Loading. Good. And consider using person first language. Like I mentioned earlier, a person with disability versus a disabled person. Again, representation, to include diverse and inclusive visual representation in your website with images, illustrations of a range of ethnicities, ages, and genders, abilities, backgrounds. Once again, still make sure it is done in an authentic manner, because otherwise it's gonna look like tokenism. So it's gonna look like we are just doing it for it to be there. It's like, I think the first signs of inclusion were when they started to add illustrations of colored people in there was this in PowerPoint. The images with people, they were all white, usually all white men, and they started to incorporate women, then people of color, and so on. These were the first time. Basically, that was there only to tick the box. So you should try to make it authentic to your local context and to your community, to your team. not only ticking the box. Because this also creates expectations. So like if you communicate in a certain manner online and people come to your Impact Hub and find a different situation there, that's where the lack of authenticity comes in. Cultural sensitivity. It's about the, again, your local context and cultural norms, customs, and sensitivities of different communities. User-generated content. This is about encouraging users, so people visiting your website, your pages, to interact and to give you feedback, basically. Use their stories, testimonials, everything that can make the image of a diverse organization round and full. Multilingual support. Yeah, everything seems to be translated in English, and now we're going a bit back because we are all speaking English as most of us speak English as a second language, and it's also important to be culturally mindful, and language is an important part of each and everyone's culture. So you should consider also providing multilingual support on your website, so if it can be translated for minorities that you might have, for example, but it's also important for all materials that you develop. Feedback and engagement is about always understanding how your online presence is perceived. So receiving feedback from your audience regarding their experience with your online presence, and always having accessible channels for feedback to make sure that they are able to send you their input. I think this is the last one. No, it's not. These are the last ones for online presence. Again, diverse perspective in content creation. We've talked about diverse perspectives already, and privacy and data protection, as we all know, is also about GDPR, but not only. It's about everything privacy. For example, if you're going to use testimonials, so what's happening with that testimonial, where is it going to be published, and so on, and how is it going to be shown. For example, if you have a testimonial, you should analyze that testimonial does not make the person look bad. Like, I don't know, if a person struggles with something and struggles with English, for example, and you record a testimonial with them speaking in English, that might create a bad image for that person. So I think you should be mindful of that as well. Any questions or comments until now? Going once, going twice. Yeah. Moving further then. Taking a break from speaking. This is the same image from Belgrade as the one before. And a small quote that you don't want a culture fit. What you need is a culture add. And this is about adding to your Impact Hub, to your team, to your membership. Adding this diverse perspective instead of seeking to seeking for people to fit in. You should try to add them to your culture. And this is the step towards the team, the diversity in teams. I'm gonna go faster because we don't have that much time left. We have only 30 minutes left, so I'm gonna go faster through this one. I'm gonna let you read more. So it's about creating a diversity recruitment strategy, eliminate bias in the selection process, foster an inclusive culture. It's everything that we said before about membership, and it's also about the team. Build diverse teams, provide equal opportunities for growth, training and the education, and this is very important also because people you work with, so the team needs to understand what diversity, equity, and inclusion is, and this should also be reflected in your guidelines, and everybody in your impact hub should work in the same manner, aligned with these values of inclusion. Encourage collaboration and teamwork. One risk is about creating these small cliques, small churches, small groups that work together and then exclude others. So you should encourage collaboration and teamwork within your team, across departments and cross teams. So you avoid running the risk of excluding some of them. Flexible work policies. As a network, we are very flexible in how we work. In Impact Hub Global Team, we work remotely from all over the world and from other impact hubs, local impact hubs. It's important for you also to consider flexibility to be able to address single mothers, for example, and so on, that are not able always to come to the office. This is one example. So co-design is key. Include a diverse group of individuals in the design process, design of everything, design of space, design of programs. Work with them, not for them. Training and awareness. It's really important for yourself and all your team to understand what diversity, equity, and inclusion is and how it can be embedded and included in everything that you do by promoting respect, understanding, and acceptance. Budget for inclusion, because sometimes DEI requires some dedicated budget, and it's important, especially for programs, for you not to forget to dedicate a budget to this. Sometimes you're gonna need a sign language specialist, for example, or a Braille translations, or something specific for that group. So you should also include this. And intersectionality. Most of the times, not only many, I think most of the times, you will work with people that have multiple vulnerabilities, like a migrant woman, for example. If she can be young migrant woman, so they have multiple vulnerabilities, and you need to understand their specific context and needs, so we can create the equal opportunity for all. Because in the end, we all need to be seen, heard, and accepted. And this creates a feeling of belonging that we all need to strive. Actually, belonging is a core need that humans have. And if we don't have belonging in our family, for example, we're going to search belonging in our workplace, in a external group, hobby, in something. But we all search for belonging. And I do believe that belonging and the culture of belonging is key to the success of any Impact Hub, because members come to the Impact Hub because they start feeling they belong there. And it's important for us to be this network where people know they are accepted and seen as they are. Any comments, feedback, questions? Going once, going twice.
Hi.
Yes, Benita.
Yes, so I have a question. And my question is on inclusion. So first of all, I understand that different hubs, we have our focus, we have our target audience, and all of that. But how do we now how do we become intentionally inclusive without diverting from our original focus?
How is it different from your original focus?
So our original target audience. So I understand that most times we have a target audience. I know that some hubs are focused on maybe persons with disability or people that are not able to speak properly or people that are disabled, right? But for some people, they are more focused on probably just youth in general and all of that. But I know that you had also talked about budget for inclusion, means that sometimes you have to include this to ensure that, okay, you get people that probably could interpret in another language or for sign languages and all of that. But most times the focus is, okay, you just want to include youths generally. And then now we're talking about you have to include persons with disability or people that are disabled or people that need aid. Isn't that too wide? And
Yeah, agree. It is very wide. This is what we also discussed in Better Incubation. It is wide, and each core group, like if you say people with disabilities, it's multiple groups inside this one. So it's not only one group. So agree, it's a lot. That's why it's important, and that's why I said before to make sure you understand what diversity is in your local context. So which groups are represented in your context, and then create the environment where they feel included. Because then when they come to you, you do the needs assessment, which should be done honestly at the beginning of every so when you begin a program, you should do a needs assessment and understand if they have specific needs that would make the experience better for them, and then you try to cover those needs, because you can't cover all needs for all programs. That would mean to have braille, sign language for all programs, which could be a waste of budget in the end if you don't have the target group there. But then you do the needs assessment and understand what's something, a specific need that would make this experience better for you. And then they should answer what's their specific need, and then you can go and cover that need. But first of all, you need to know it. If you don't know it, you can't cover it. You have new members joining, you should have on onboarding new members and to understand who the new member is. Because if a person with disability wants to join your Impact Hub, you should be prepared, or you should tell them that you are not prepared to host them if you are not. Because I don't know, for example, if a person in wheelchairs join your Impact Hub and all the light switches are at 2 meters or high and they can't reach them, that's not a space prepared for them. So if you can cover that and be inclusive for that target group is good, but otherwise you should be able to tell them. But first of all, you need to understand the need of the group. Totally agree that you can't be prepared at all times for all groups because there's a diversity, a very large range. But I think what's the most important thing for us as a network is for all groups to feel accepted and included here. So they should all feel that they can pick up the phone and call us and ask, okay, I have this business idea. I don't know, I want a co-working space. Can I join you? Because for some, they might not even, if we don't communicate in an inclusive manner, they will not even think about calling you. So for example, communicating in an inclusive manner means that they feel that they can approach you. And you can help them yourself, or you can redirect them to something else, but at least they are included. Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cool. So, moving on. About becoming a DEI ambassador, because I do believe that everything starts with us in this room. So I have some questions for you. It's not for you to answer right now. It's for you to answer by yourself. So they're reflection questions. Have you ever been in a situation where you've witnessed someone being treated unfairly due to their ethnicity, gender, or any other characteristics? And I would add, if so, what did you do? I'm not pausing for you to answer now. I'm just pausing for you to have a couple of seconds to reflect. As said, you will all receive these slides as well, and you can reflect back on these questions. Reflecting on your social circle and workplace. Are there any groups or individuals who may feel marginalized or underrepresented? And how can you contribute to making them feel more included? Have you ever felt excluded from a group? Have you ever found yourself hesitating to voice your opinion or share your ideas in a group because you felt your perspective might not align with the majority? And talking about reflection, I think it's important for us all to reflect on what privilege is, because privilege is also a part of diversity and inclusion and understanding privilege. So we still have 12 minutes.
Some people are born into families where they have.
I'm gonna fast forward a bit because I want to reach the part with the question, and you're gonna have the link to watch the entire video by yourself about what is privilege. You might know this type of exercise is the exercise of take a step forward if, and there's a question there.
Some people are born into families where they have to walk miles just to get water on a faucet. That's privilege.
I can't, okay, gone. trying to
college I was
fast
allowed to go to.
I suppose being a white male will help me end up somewhere towards the front, but I'll take a.
Okay. So,
If your parents work nights and weekends to support your family, take one step back. If you can show affection for your romantic partner in public without fear of ridicule or violence, take one step forward. If you were embarrassed about your clothes or house while growing up, take one step back. If you have ever been diagnosed as having a physical or mental illness or disability, take one step back. If you have ever been bullied or made fun of based on something you can't change, take one step back. If you get time off for your religious holidays, take one step forward. If you came from a supportive family environment, if you can see a doctor whenever you feel the need, if you are able to move through the world without fear of sexual assault, if you took out loans for your education, if there were more than 50 books in your house growing up. So these are your final positions.
I think it felt kind of strange for everyone.
It's a hard thing to discuss or even reflect on. It was very awkward. I think when you can represent it so visually like this and so immediately, it definitely takes on a new form.
I think we were like all joking around in the beginning. It was pretty lighthearted, and as soon as the questions started coming in, the mood shifted immediately, and we all it was just silent.
Just looking back and seeing like a bunch of people behind you is not a good feeling.
It's like weird how you want to like hold on to explaining a certain privilege, like, oh, but that's not actually me, because like I had to work really hard for that. So it's weird to like take a step forward when you feel like you're taking a step forward with someone else, but you wear a lot of the baggage of like how those things were hard.
It was like more emotional than I thought it would be.
It reminded me of when they talk about slavery in high school, and you feel like angry for a few days, but then you just realize like, this is how it is.
For me, it was kind of frustrating.
So I interrupted the video because I don't want to keep the space only for this right now. I wanted to show it, this type of exercise, because this is something you also can do, for example, in your team, in your community, because it's something that shows people on one hand how similar we are, on the other how different, and I do believe that it's an eye-opening type of exercise. Okay. So this is about DEI starts with you, and it starts with you as you are here for this workshop, and I am very honored to have you here. You also, it's important for you to assess your own biases, and we discussed in the beginning about biases. To engage in dialogue. For example, this is something that I try to do ever since I started working in DEI, and I keep talking about this with every occasion that I get. Advocate for change and lead by example. And this is what I was talking in the beginning. It would be a pity for us as such a large network to use this, to not to use this opportunity to create this kind of impact and build in the direction of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And by the way, we do also have a motion that that passed this year, so you will see diversity, equity, and inclusion in the formal strategy as well. Moving further, because we don't have much time, I'm gonna let you read through these 2 slides about language. I told you before that we do have 2 slides about language. These are the tools and resources linked. Once again, you're gonna have access to all sorts of resources, toolkits, best practices, policy recommendations, and trainings that are all open and online, and we are all the time generating new content. The risk here, honestly, is for you to get overwhelmed, which I really hope you don't get overwhelmed and you start doing anything, because any action is better than no action. This is another set of resources and short Q&A session. So if you have any questions, thoughts that you want to share, now we are reaching the end. Still have 5 more minutes. Okay, if you don't have question, I do have something to give you to do, an exercise. Going once, twice. No questions. Okay. I do hope that means that I was very coherent. Okay. So as my final thoughts, what I want you to do now is reflect on how you can contribute to fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion in your personal and professional life. So I'm going to invite you now for the remaining 5 minutes, to do this on your own. Nobody will see it. To write on a paper, on your phone, on your laptop, anywhere, at least one action, one thing that you can implement starting tomorrow in your personal life, in your professional life, and one in your impact hub regarding DEI action. So ideally, we all live here with 3 action points that we can start implementing even from tomorrow. So I'm gonna let you write for 3 minutes, and then we're gonna say goodbye or answer questions if you have any in the meantime. It's very quiet. I think some ambience music could be useful. I'm not sure if you can hear the music. Can you?
Very, very low. Now,
Better?
yes, yes, it's better.
So I really hope you got the chance. Can you raise your hands and do a reaction so I understand if you actually managed to write 3 things? Okay.
People were shy in the end of the session,
Yeah.
but I'm sure in case you haven't finalized to write the 3 things, the slides will be there at the community platform, as you know, as always. I just want to take the moment to really thank you, Lucia, for the session. It was really great. Thank you for that. Lucia is one of our experts in the network and DEI. So in the future, when you are already applying your DEI plan as your impact hub, Lucia might be one of the ones that you can count on if you need any extra support. So thank you so much, Lucia. And just as a reminder, Lucia mentioned already that it was approved a motion. So as you know, Impact Hub network is an association. So all the decisions are very much collaboratively made. And we had this approval towards our DEI strategy, which means having a balance, gender balance in the Impact Hub leaderships, and also having a demographics representation within the Impact Hub teams. This is something that once it was approved, so the Impact Hubs, over 100 Impact Hubs approved on making this a reality, which is unfortunately not at the moment. And it's very important for us that you are aware about it, and that so you can also make your plans towards actually saying, right, walking the talk and having diversity, equity, and inclusion as roots, as part of your Impact Hub. Okay, good. Lucia, anything else you'd like to take to close the session today?
Just wanted to thank you for the invitation, and thank everybody for the patience. I know it was a lot of information, and please do feel free to reach out to me, because I don't want this to only be a session full of slides, full of information that is scary. It's not scary if we already start. So if we start before building the house. So if we build a house with DEI in it already. So thank you, and just wishing you all a great day, evening, and hope to be in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucia. Thank you, everybody, and see you all in our next session this afternoon for me to talk about our global environment strategy. Cool. Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.